Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great week. It's Wednesday here. It's a little rainy outside, kind of a little glum. Hopefully it clears out for Sunday, Easter, so the kids can do their Easter egg hunting or we can do our grilling or whatever we plan to do that day. I hope that everybody's having a great week so far. I am still sleep deprived, but I am making it through the week. I wanted to jump on here on a Wednesday because there is a case that I've been looking into, and it's quickly upcoming the day that she is sentenced to death. Her name is Melissa Lucio. Lucia, I think I'm saying it right. And she will be the first Hispanic woman to be put to death in Texas. Now, she is at the same prison that Darlie Routier has been at on death row. Melissa was convicted of capital murder and the death of her 2-year-old daughter, Mariah. This case has not gotten a lot of press or a lot of attention. It's only recently come out over the past couple of years. There was a documentary made on her, and people have now been questioning the ruling on this case, and there is a lot to question. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it right now. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background on Melissa. Melissa grew up very poor. She was raised by her mother. Her mom is interviewed in the Hulu documentary, and I'll put that link so that you can see the name of that. And the mom would say, that, and the sisters, she had several sisters, that, Melissa was very quiet growing up. She was very passive. Somewhere down the line, Melissa was sexually by her mother's boyfriend. Melissa did tell her mother, but her mother says, at the time, they didn't believe little kids. Melissa was, I think, around 7 when this happened. And that she told Melissa, just go away. Don't say those things. Don't ever say those things to me again. And I think back then, probably little kids were not to be believed. They were kind of just hushed away, and that's how things were swept under the rug in families for a really long time. Mothers didn't believe it or didn't want to believe it. Some, not all, and you just went away and you didn't talk about it. So she said from there, the abuse went on from uncles and along the family. So Melissa got married very young. She got married at 16, hoping to escape the constant SA that she was getting from family members and her mother's boyfriends. She got married and instantly started having children. This was a way for her to, I guess, seek the love and attention that she wanted, but not have to be at the hands to sacrifice for other things. So she could have unconditional love with her babies. And she wanted to be a mom. However, unfortunately, she would pick the same men that she left living with her mother. Abusive men. Men that tend to be abusive toward her. Like I said, she was very passive. She went along with it. So she would keep having children and kind of leaving men and having children. She did have, I believe, 14 in total. But before the 14, she had 12. Okay, so the 12th one was little Mariah. Mariah was 2 years old when all of this happened to her. So Mariah was living with her mother and her father at the time, and they were living in an upstairs, very run-down apartment. As you can imagine, with 12 kids, they were living very, very poor. Okay, they did not have a lot. Her family her sister would testify that she lived in basically poverty. She did make sure the kids were fed. She did make sure that they had a bath. But, she wasn't the perfect mother, but she also wasn't abusive mother. Her kids, at the time that this happened to Mariah, she had 7-year-old, 9-year-old, and older. So they were able to tell of the conditions that they lived in. So they interviewed them and they said, every day we would get home from school, we would go down to the church and we would have our free dinner. Mom would take us to the park and we would play. And they said, Mom was not the disciplinarian in our home. But we loved our mom and she took care of us the best she could. And, we never were hungry with mom. So, I'm gathering the fact that she was not a perfect mother by any means. She had a lot of children, maybe more than she could keep up with or more than she could take care of, because she was relying on government assistance and things like that. But I'm also gathering that she wasn't violent, that she wasn't possibly a murderer. But I wasn't sold on it at this point. I was still thinking, well, she may have snapped and did this to her child. Okay, so they do interview her oldest children and her brother, and they say that Melissa did indeed have a drug problem. She had a drug problem. They said she would go into the bathroom and use drugs for about an hour, but she would come out and do what she needed to do for her kids. Now, they suspect that her drug usage was from the undealt with abuse that she received when she was growing up and from possibly the spouses that she was with. And I can see how that happens to someone. And again, just because you are an addict or a recovered addict or you abuse substance, that doesn't make you a murderer. Okay, so you can't put somebody to death because of these problems. Now, all these things can lead to violence. I understand that too. So I'm still not buying into it. I'm watching this documentary. I'm now starting to try and look up things. I'm looking up Melissa. I'm looking up Cameron County where this happened. I'm starting to look up things myself. I'm like, I need to figure out more about this case because I know documentaries, they can be very one-sided sometimes. So I like to start looking up things for myself at this point. So Melissa's oldest daughter, Daniela, is in the documentary. And, my heart is torn up for these kids because they love their mother. And Daniela goes on to speak and says, she was a disciplinarian in the family as well. And that happens a lot in big families, especially of Hispanic descent families. They show the girls how to take on roles and they teach them to cook. And these girls know what's going on. And they take on the role and they help their mother. They help clean, they help cook. They're very respectful families. And so the girl would step up and help her mom discipline. And she said, the only way we would discipline would be a pinch or a little swat on the butt. And that was it. She said, my mom was never violent. And out of, 14 or 12 total kids, and I keep saying 14 because she was pregnant at the time that her daughter passed away with twins. So it would end up being 14. But at the time she went to jail, she had 12 kids. So the oldest daughter, was the one saying, I never saw anything on my brothers or sisters. And in fact, none of the older kids said that they ever saw their mother abuse any of their siblings. CPS was involved. Now, I don't have a lot of faith in CPS. However, I don't know about over in Cameron County. I do know that the police is very corrupt in Cameron County, and I'll let you know why I know that later. It's a fact. It's not just my opinion. But maybe in Cameron County, CPS is a little better. There were several reports on Melissa to CPS and her husband to CPS. The reports were nothing about abuse ever. The reports were that there was no running water in the house, that the kids were flushing the toilet with buckets of water. There were reports that there was not enough food in the home, but the children did not seem to be losing weight. There were reports saying that there was no violence in the home. There was no marks on the kids. And the lady that is now her habeas corpus lawyer, I think that's what it's called, that has gone through these files for over a decade now, says that there's 4,000 pages from CPS, but there's not one report in all of those files that has anything about violence from Melissa toward any of her children. So her children were removed at one time. They were homeless for a brief amount of time. The school had noticed they were sleeping in the parks and on park benches. And CPS came in and gave Melissa a drug test. She tested positive for the use of cocaine. They removed the kids for a little while, but then Melissa did get her children back and kind of got her act together. Now, I have an opinion about mental health in this world that we live in. Mental health is extremely important. Addiction is a direct cause, in my opinion, of mental health, untreated mental health issues. And when you look past abuse and you see someone being abused and you see someone turning towards substances to mask the abuse that's going on from her relationships, that's going on from her childhood, all of that masking, with the family, someone maybe, I don't know, if you see it, try and step in and lend a hand to somebody like that because they need it. Okay, so I believe most of the time when people are doing that, they have had trauma in their life. And I think Melissa had a lot of trauma in her life. No, it wasn't the children's fault. No, it wasn't. Okay, I'm not defending that behavior, but I'm not saying that she murdered her child either. I'm still looking into, in my thought process, I'm still like, okay, this is not a good thing. Kids sleeping on, that's not a good thing. Using cocaine, that's not a good thing. Take the kids, get yourself together, Melissa. Somebody, get yourself together. Well, she gets the kids back, okay? And I think she was trying to get herself together because she had bought or found a house for them to live in. They had been living upstairs in this rickety old apartment. And her sister comes on and says, Melissa lived very, very poor. She moved a lot. She said that Melissa, though, would never ask for help or complain about anything to them, to the family. She said they had a very close family. But Melissa never complained, and asked for anything. So let's get to what happened that day. Okay, so Mariah had a little minor foot problem. And it was noted, this foot problem was noted in the CPS reports, as well as her siblings knew about the foot problem. The family knew about the foot problem, so it wasn't made up. Also, I can tell you that Kennedy was born with feet that turned in. It was a minor club feet, and we had to cast her for months and months to straighten them out. They thought they were going to have to do surgery on her, but we were able to straighten them out, and now she has to wear braces to keep them straight. So Mariah was born with one foot that turned in very badly, and Mariah would fall and trip a lot over this foot. So it was noted, because Mariah would get bumps and bruises, that she tripped a lot over this one foot. And the kids knew it, and the family knew it, and CPS knew it. Well, let me tell you about what happened on February 15th, 2007, the day that they were moving. So as you can imagine, they're upstairs in this apartment. There's these long stairs that lead downstairs. They're moving things. The older boys are down at the bottom of this staircase, okay? And they're moving in and out, that like you do on a moving day. Well, Mariah somehow's at the top of the stairs, probably in and out the door. I'm sure it was kind of chaotic with that many children. Somebody wasn't looking out for Mariah. I don't know what happened, but she fell down those stairs. Okay? This is what happened. This is what happened according to her brothers that were 9 and 12. This is what happened. They all saw her fall down the stairs. And this is what they told. The kids were brought in for questioning as well right after this happened. And they have it on videotape, the kids being questioned about what happened. And they all say the same thing. Mariah fell down the stairs. Mariah fell down the white stairs. They all say that. So Mariah falls down the stairs, and the boys see that. And one of the brothers said, well, she fell down the stairs, but she was okay. They said, well, why? He said, well, she got back up. She didn't have any bruises on her. She wasn't crying. She was okay. Well, they keep moving that day. So they get to the new house. And he said, we were all sitting around the TV watching it. And my mom was putting things where they belong. And he said, Mariah was on my lap watching TV. And Mariah, she started looking like she was tired. And I kissed her on the forehead and I laid her down. And he said, she never woke up. So he said that that they all started screaming and crying. And he said his mom was crying and she had mascara down her face and he was trying to clean it up. And Mariah just didn't wake up. And they called the ambulance. And then the sister says they go over and she said that her sister, Melissa's just staring. She said she looks like a zombie. She's just staring, just sitting there. Well, not even within 2 hours, they have Melissa up at the police station. They have the kids taken away and the interrogation starts. Okay, so I want you to put your brain and mind into what just happened. You've just witnessed your 2-year-old daughter dead. You don't know what's happened. Okay, let's just give her the benefit of the doubt right now. Okay, because we're going by what the witnesses are saying right now. She's passed away. They have covered her, taken her away. They're now taking you to a room. And this is where, for me, crap went south for me. Okay, this is where I'm starting to question what really happened. What happened? Because there's what the coroner's saying and what they're saying happened. Something's wrong here, okay? Okay, so they videotaped and you get to see the full interrogation of Melissa. These police officers are something else. I mean, we all saw the Chris Watts interrogation. This interrogation, I've watched a lot of interrogations. I watch a lot of coerced, coerced confessions. And I watch a lot of interrogations all the time. Because I'm always like, how do you give a fake confession? Like, come on, how are you going to say you're guilty of something you're not? But then I watch a lot of these, and then I was watching how like the military breaks people down and how they use all this stuff. So I know it can happen. Okay, I know it can happen. In my mind, I'm like, no, I would never admit to that. But I know you can be broken down. But in my mind, she didn't give a fake confession. She didn't give a false confession. She said something that was taken and then twisted around to be a false confession. But she didn't. So this is what they do to her. This is what I saw. They bring her in there. She is blank-faced. Now, I'm going to tell you what that is, what I saw with her. I saw a form of disassociation. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you what it is because I have it from trauma. Okay, from me seeing what I've seen of my child, of my mother, that trauma gets into your brain and sometimes you disassociate. It's because your brain can't handle that trauma. So it kind of leaves, your brain kind of leaves your body for a little bit to protect itself. Okay, and you're kind of just sitting there like, and you leave for a little, and you're dazed, but you kind of feel, it's kind of like you feel out of your body for just a little bit. And sometimes I have to like start doing this or start, bringing myself back and like getting back in, to be like, okay, I'm centered, I'm back. But that looked a lot like what she was doing, like trying to process what's happening to her. And they're yelling in her face, "We know you did this. We know you beat your child, Melissa. We know you killed her, didn't you? You killed her, you beat her to death." Then they bring the pictures of her baby on the table in the coroner's office, showing her, "Look at what you've done to your baby." At this point, her baby is covered from head to toe in bruises. Bruises, I mean covered. Now I'm like, what is happening? Why is the baby covered in bruises? Nobody reported this baby covered in bruises. So they go to the medical examiner, okay? This lady, let me get her name, hang on. So the medical examiner, her name is Norma Jean Farley. You can look her up, Norma Jean Farley. I looked her up. She's also, I watched a news channel where the woman that filmed this documentary about Melissa, she's from France. So she went and looked up Norma Jean Farley as she was doing Melissa's documentary. This lady has been in trouble. She's been sued because of the way she handles things. So she went on and did the baby's, Mariah's autopsy. And she saw this baby. And by the time she got to see her, the baby was covered from head to toe in bruises. So her finding was that, and she said this, let me see what she said. She said, this is the worst case of child abuse she had ever seen. There were bruises from her forehead to her toes. There was blood accumulated in the cranial vault due to a kick or a punch in the head. She said it was a homicide. Okay, she did not, she was judge, trial, she was the verdict. In my opinion, you do your autopsy. You write your findings down, but you don't come out and say, this is a homicide. That's not for you to decide. That you are there to write down everything that is wrong with that child, because they did bring in another specialist. Make note, on her trial, they did not, though. They let that stand in her trial. They did not bring in another person to do the autopsy, which they have now, and I'll tell you about that. I'll get to that part, okay? Let me get back to Melissa's interrogation. Okay, so they have Melissa still in the interrogation room. She was interrogated for over 5 hours. She wasn't given a water break. She wasn't given any kind of restroom break, no food. Keep in mind, she is pregnant with her twins at this point. She has just experienced the most horrible thing as a mother, as a human being, you will ever experience in your life. And you've just been showed pictures of it. You've experienced it and you've just been showed pictures of it. They're hammering her. I mean, they are wanting to break this mother. That's what they're wanting. And I don't blame them. if the coroner has called and said, this lady beat this child to death and kicked her in the head, you're gonna want to break her. However, as we saw in the Chris Watts case, they did it. They broke him, but not in this way. And they are in her face. They're like, we know you killed your daughter. Tell us what you did. We know you beat her to death. Tell us. Just say you did it. Say you did it. She said over 100 times in that interrogation, she did not hurt or murder her baby. Over 100 times. And she looks blank-faced. She looks just out of it. And so when I watched it, I didn't see her I did see her break down when they showed the pictures. She said, I wish it was me. I wish it was me. Then she's just like, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. She's putting her hands down. The officer said, because she didn't make eye contact and she was like slumped over, that was representative of guilt. That's not representative of guilt all the time. That's representative of, you're a male figure and I've been abused my whole life by men and I'm scared of you. And you're in my face screaming at me and I'm fearing for you. But she stood her ground against those men. And they said that she confessed. And what I saw is they brought out a baby doll, like a little tiny plastic baby doll. And they hit it and they said, show me how you hit your baby. And a 2-year-old isn't a little plastic doll. A 2-year-old, big old little girl. So they said, take the baby doll. Show me, how did you hit her? So she takes the baby doll and she's like that. And they go, no, you show me. And she's like that. Which I don't know what that was showing, because that's nothing, what the coroner said. That wouldn't kill a baby, on the back. That's not going to kill a baby. That's not enough trauma. So then at the end, she says something to the effect of, I guess I'm responsible for her death. Or I guess I did do her death. Something, it was very vague. But I don't feel like, I feel like she was saying that she was responsible for what happened. And she was responsible for what happened. She was responsible. She was negligent in not watching her 2-year-old so that she didn't fall down the stairs. I understand that part. But did she push her? I don't think she pushed her. Did she beat her to death? I don't think she beat her to death. There's no evidence of any of that was ever brought into court, actually. So they lock Melissa up and then they go to trial. And that trial is a circus, apparently. It is just a 3-ring circus. So in court, usually the lawyer will file some pretrial motions to get like a capital murder confession, like a motion to file for a false confession. When the client says that they're innocent and they're saying that they confessed, the attorney will file a false confession. He didn't file anything. Basically, he offered her 30 years. He said, hey, they're offering you 30 years. Take the 30 years. You'll be out when you're 68 and you can still see your kids. And Melissa said, no, I'm not taking that. I didn't murder my daughter. I didn't do this. And if I didn't do this, I'm not going to get convicted, because, guilty people get convicted. And she said, I'm not going to take it. And they also show a clip of her mother, who said at first she believed Melissa was guilty too, because that's what they believed. They said, you only get convicted if you're guilty. Innocent people don't get put in jail. And that's just how they were raised and what they thought of the judicial system. They didn't know that, people get falsely accused and falsely imprisoned for a really long time sometimes. So this was their first look at how things unfold in the judicial system. So Melissa told her lawyer, she said, look, just get my kids in here. They saw what happened. They're old enough, they can let everybody know that, Mariah fell down the stairs. I didn't punch her or hit her. or push her, right? She fell. And the lawyer said, no, I'm not bringing the kids in here because they're not going to be good witnesses. They're going to be up running around. They won't sit still. They're going to aggravate the jury. We don't want to aggravate the jury. And then it shows in the documentary the kids being interviewed, how polite they are sitting. They're clearly answering the questions for the person interviewing them from, I think it's CPS maybe. And they're drawing, they have these diagrams and they're showing how they saw Mariah fall. So then I'm starting to think, what is up with her attorney? You know, he's not wanting to do anything. And the family says nobody ever came to them. Nobody ever came from the defense to talk to them. No police officers ever came to interview them. None of her neighbors. There were no character witnesses for Melissa. No one came. No one was asked to speak on her behalf. Melissa did take the stand herself. They did do one thing. They hired a lady named Norma Villanueva, and she was denied access. She was supposed to be interviewing the children, and she talks about how she was denied access to the kids until right before the trial. But she was able to speak to the kids. And one of the kids, Alexandria had admitted to her that she was responsible for Mariah falling down the stairs. She said she was angry at Mariah because Mariah was always crying and getting between her and the other kids while they were playing. And she said, I'm the reason that Mariah fell down these stairs. So she took it to the meeting with Melissa's lawyer, and she was instructed, and they show the paperwork, emails, all of it, to not bring that information before the jury and to not tell anybody about what Alexandria had said. So they hear about this information. Well, it was known in the family that Alexandria did not like Mariah because Mariah was from a different father. And Alexandria did not see Mariah as her sister. And she would pinch her. And some of the boys said that they would see her like taking Mariah and knocking her head on the concrete and just being very mean to Mariah. Well, they caught up with Alexandria on here, and she just says that no, she didn't like Mariah, but that she didn't remember saying that she had pushed her down the stairs. And it ends with that part on on Alexandria. So then Melissa's sister said that she and her mom wanted to go visit Melissa and ask her about Alex. They wanted to know if this really occurred. And this kind of got to me because it showed me in a way that Melissa did love her children. She said they went to the jail, and Melissa, they're behind the glass on death row. They're not allowed to touch anybody. And she said, sister, I just want you to shake your head yes or no. That's all I want. She said, would Alex have hurt Mariah? And she said, Melissa just put her head down and cried. And she said she didn't shake her head yes or no. She wasn't going to say that. But she said when Melissa put her head down to cry, she knew the answer. And Melissa does eventually come out and say that yes, Alex did not like Mariah. And that was true. What was said, that they were from different fathers. And that she would push her and she would do things to her. But she didn't want Alex to have to be questioned over this happening to Mariah. So Melissa's sister recalls when Melissa was found guilty and sentenced to death. She said the courtroom was like a circus. She said the jurors were high-fiving. They were laughing with the judge and the prosecution. She said everybody seemed really happy that she had gotten the death penalty. And she said, she just couldn't believe it, that, she was found guilty and there wasn't any proof that she had done this. And that everybody was just so excited over something that was just so tragic anyway. I mean, I personally, when people are found guilty of horrific crimes, I don't find any happiness or joy in any of it. I mean, I'm thankful that sick people are off the streets. I do like a sigh of relief, but I'm not jumping up and down high-fiving because it's just a sad situation. And it's even sadder when you aren't really sure if that was the right choice. You just took somebody's life from them, and you're jumping up for joy. But now let me tell you what went on behind the scenes, why they started to even question more. Why did they use Melissa Lucio? Why did they hand her such a horrific death penalty? Why, when there wasn't really any evidence there to convict her? What was behind this? Okay, so over in Cameron County, it was an election year. Armando Villarobos, I'm sorry, I butchered that name. He's seeking re-election, okay? Come to find out, oh, my battery's running low. Oops. Okay, come to find out, he is going to be indicted because he has done some really bad things. He had just let out a murderer from prison. This man was let out and disappeared. So this whole, the people were pissed that he had let this happen. So he's going to be reelected. He wants to show he's tough on crime. 5 days later, this happens. He brings in Melissa. Melissa is going to be the face case for his new election. He's tough on crime. Look, he's bringing in this Hispanic lady. She murdered her baby. It's front page news, right? Well, he gets her the death penalty. This man is starting to be looked into because he's going to run for Senate. Well, they start looking into him and they find out he is connected to the drug cartel. He's been given favorable treatment to criminal cases. So he basically has, the judiciary system down there, they're puppets for him. What he says goes. So he's letting them go, and then he's taking a stand on any cases dealing with children, child abuse, and he is using them as a strong arm, if you will, to show that he's tough on crime. So what a better way? Hey, this mom's coming in 5 days later. Let's make a huge show out of it. Let's get her, and I can stand up and I can say, look at me, I'm tough on crime. But really, in the back, he's really a criminal. Okay, so he appealed to the special demographic of people. It was very Catholic demographic. And he would personally come and take over some cases that were to do with drugs and things like that, because he got a kickback of that money by letting these charges go so they could continue their drug rink and things. And then he would put people on death row, and then he would work with certain attorneys. Well, it just so happened right after Melissa's attorney let her get convicted, he got moved up to the DA's office, because guess what? He's going to now be the puppet of Armando. So all this happens, but guess what? Armando gets caught, and he is now in prison spending 13 years for all of his crimes he's committed while he was in the office. You know what I'm talking about. While he was there in the district attorney's office. So he's not even there anymore. And so they've said now every death penalty case he has had his hand in needs to be looked at again because it's shady. And this is one of them. Okay, so you're probably wondering about the bruises. Well, they brought in another forensic pathologist, which is what they should have done in her court case. But her lawyer didn't do any of that, obviously, for obvious reasons, for his new DA job that he got. But they brought in another one for her appeals and all of that business. And he said that when you initially fall, and this is true, think about when you fall. Initially, you probably are not going to show bruises. Like, I fell today, as a matter of fact. I was taking Kennedy to get some donuts for breakfast, and I was going to carry her across the street, and I fell. Planted right there. And I'm now showing, I have a skinned knee, but I feel like I'm going to have a bruise tomorrow. So when you fall, you may not have bruises initially. But when you fall and you hit your head, when you have head trauma, the trauma from that fall may not show up immediately either. It may take a while. So what she had was probably a brain injury. Okay, and so when you have a brain injury, you have a cascade reaction, he says. And so that's why when she got to the autopsy, she was covered in bruises. It had been 24 hours, I believe, since she had fallen. So when you have the brain injury, your brain starts to fall apart. And substances in the brain release a cascade and of a reaction. And previous injuries and minor movement of the body at any point in time, they're going to show bruises. Of even you lying down, it'll show those imprints. And even the bed can cause bruising because of the brain portion kind of like releasing this cascade effect on your body. Because the blood is no longer clotting anymore. So the doctor saw bruises and came to the conclusion that she had been beaten, when in fact she had head trauma, but she was 2. So she may have been experiencing dizziness, headaches, maybe she was even vomiting and nobody knew or noticed. But she just couldn't verbalize, hey, my head hurts. Hey, I'm dizzy. Hey, I'm not feeling quite right. You know, maybe that's why she was laying on her brother like that. And she went to sleep, and that's what they tell you, you know, when you hit your head, don't go to sleep, you know, go in and get checked. And that's where I see the negligence on Melissa's part. You know, if she didn't see the fall, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into that because I was quickly trying to get this out, but I will look into it. If she did see the fall and she didn't take her in, she's very negligent as well. Either way, she's negligent for the baby falling. But I can understand the brother seeing the fall and thinking she's fine because they don't know. And maybe even Melissa didn't know. You know, when somebody falls that hard, you may appear to be fine, but internally you need to get checked out. And, you know, the baby Mariah needed to be checked out from a fall that hard. And that's probably what led to her death. So what's happening? Well, she is scheduled to be put to death on April 27th. She will be the first Latin woman to be put to death in Texas. She is on death row. She is in the same prison that Darlie Routier is on. As a matter of fact, I am on Darlie Routier's Facebook group, and they said that they have moved Melissa down on death row toward the front so that she is getting ready for her execution date. Melissa says that part of her wants to just go be with Mariah and be reunited with her. She has told her family to please make arrangements for her funeral. There was a private investigator also involved in this case. Okay, so yeah, my ending did not record. I don't know what is the deal. It happens every single time. So I had to come back in here and I got to go get Kennedy, but I'm going to re-record it again. I don't remember what I said in my ending, but let me try it again. So I was talking about how she is going to be scheduled for death on April 27th. She's told her children to plan for a funeral. Of course, they don't want to do it. No one in her family wants to see her die, especially over a crime that they say she didn't do. She says she didn't do. The new evidence says she didn't do it. She didn't get the trial she deserves, in my opinion. In the opinion of 5 jurors. In the opinion, her case was overturned at one point, but then Texas reinstated it. I don't know if it's people not wanting to be wrong. I'm not sure what's going on. But when I watched it, at first I thought she was guilty and she was lying. When I saw the autopsy, there's no way. But then listening to all the experts and digging myself deeper and looking at the facts and how injuries occur and how this could have happened, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that she beat this little girl. Because other kids in the house, they know when they're being abused. They know when sisters are being abused. And other people know. I believe her. I really do. I believe she's entitled at least to a new trial, something. What do you think? Do you think that Melissa should be put to death on April 27th? Do you think that Texas has gotten it wrong? Do you think that the trial was right? Or do you think she deserves a new trial altogether? With all the things that went wrong with her trial, all the controversies surrounding it, the defense that totally failed her, didn't give her a defense at all. Nothing was done correctly for her. I think with a new trial, they could bring in everything. I think the jurors that sentenced her, if she is put to death, are really going to have a hard time with themselves because they weren't told the truth. And they're right about that. So let me know what you think. I'd like to know your opinion on this one. Like I said, I did really have to open my mind because it is dealing with the child, but I don't think she did it. And let me tell you, she's not the most likable person because she is a quiet, withdrawn person. That's just her. That's just her. I think from her abuse and the things she's ashamed of in her life. She's a very quiet person. So she doesn't come across as a personable, likable person at first. But then when you start hearing the stories about her and what she's gone through and why she is the way she is, then you can kind of go in with a more of an open mind and start recognizing how she was taken advantage of and how they kept this a secret for so long from the public. Why she was a lost case. No one even wanted to look into her case. She's not a beautiful lady. She's not, it wasn't picked up by the media. This one lady in France decided to go into this jail, and she was doing a documentary on women on death row. And of course, she came to Texas to do it. And she just saw Melissa and she was like, well, it's a woman on death row. I've never heard of this lady. Let me just interview her. I'm sure she's guilty. And that's what came from that. She said she was shocked when she interviewed her family and they said, oh, no one ever came to talk to us. And that's how all this started. So let me know what you think. I am really thankful that I'm getting new subscribers. I have my goal of 1,000 subscribers So I hope to reach that and celebrate at some point. But I will see you later on in this week. I have another one planned for you, and it's a good one. So y'all have a safe day, and I will